time. My name is Barbara. I'm going to be answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progress natal chart reading, mini natal chart reading, mini synastry reading, you guys can send me an email. So that's going to be in the description box below. You guys can select which kind of reading you guys would like. An email window should pop up. You guys send me an email and we will go from there. Hey everyone, how you guys doing? I see you guys in the chat. Hey Mary, hey Sundog, hey Savory Libra, hey Julia. What is up, you guys? How are you guys doing? What is the 411? What should we talk about today? How are you guys doing? What is new? You said you're expecting your Saturn return in Aries conjunct the moon. You said it's in 2nd house or 2nd house intercepted Placidus and 4th house whole sign. Currently hopeful, not forced to move out of my flat, no money. That's that 4th house Saturn return. Yes, that is a thing that has to happen because it's going to be opposing your 10th house, so it always affects your work. And it's like, this is for anyone who goes through a Saturn in the 4th house transit. That could be one of the things that takes place. Obviously not everybody. Hey everyone, hey Francois, how are you doing? Hey water sign, what's new, you guys? You said, do I ever use whole sign and not Placidus? I have been looking at whole sign recently. It's interesting you asked that. I look at everything. The way that I see it is like, I feel like I uncover secret information. Does that make sense? My readings are always in Placidus, but recently I've been checking out my own placements in whole sign and I'm like, yes, a lot of it makes sense. So, you know, it's just the way that it is. I'm a Mercury and Libra, so I see, you know, the sides to everything. A lot of things resonate. So it's this, I feel like all this information is available to us for a reason. Same thing with the orbs. I know some people are super strict with the orbs when they're looking at conjunctions and squares. I look up to 10 degrees, but sometimes I open it up to 15 and I find a surprise. I'm literally always discovering new things about my own natal chart even. Hey, Aritza, how are you doing? Hey, Chris underscore X6, how are you doing? You're a Scorpio moon tune away, Sag rising. You said, is this a good combo? It's definitely intense. Can you tell me, is your moon in Scorpio in the 12th house or is it in the 1st house? And I'm curious to know, is your 12th house occupied by Scorpio? Hey, Beatrice, yes. Hey, family, how are you guys doing? What is new? Are any of you guys on holidays yet? Are you guys working? What is going on? Do you guys have any plans for the holidays? Do you guys celebrate the holiday season? What is new? What should we talk about today, guys? What is new? Hey, Paul, how's it going? How are you all doing? How are you all doing? Give me 1 second, you guys. All right, I am back. What should we talk about today? What do you guys want to know about? How are the vibes for you guys? Have you been hooking into anything? Surprisingly, I haven't. It's the winter solstice, and then we have the quote-unquote 3 days of darkness, and then we're going to have the longer days in the northern hemisphere, and then it's the opposite for the southern hemisphere. And then, of course, the people around the equator have a pretty balanced day, I would say. You said you like my Uranus video. Yay, I'm glad. You said you have Uranus out of bounds in declination as well. No way. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed that video. Yes, I was like, I feel like we need to talk about Uranus energy. I'm over Uranus getting different types of raps. Like, it's just still confusing to me. Like, why does Uranus, like, why is the 11th house about friendship? Because to me, it's like a loner energy. Like, I guess they had to give friendship to one of the houses, but it would have made more sense if it was like the 3rd house or the 7th house. Like, I can see that way more for friendship versus the 11th house. The 11th house is very detached, very, very detached energetically. And not in like a bad way. I know people talk about Uranus and like Aquarius being like detached in the shadow sense. It doesn't have to be this. They're just like doing their own thing and focus on themselves. All right, guys, what is new? What are you guys up to? What should we talk about today? If you guys are in the chat, you guys can double tap on the screen to like the live. Thank you so much. If you guys so choose to, if you guys are watching the live replay, you guys can always select the thumbs up to like the live so we can meet more astrology friends. I'm trying to think too. So what else is going on astrologically? Interestingly enough, I don't follow the transits at all unless it like catches my attention. So you have Scorpio in the 12th house. Can you tell me, do you have moon in the 12th house as well? And what's going on with your Chiron? I'm curious to know. Curious to know. Scorpio in the 12th house is a struggle. I always talk about this. Like, I find Sag rising to be one of the harder rising signs to have, because if you have a Sag rising and then you have your 12th house occupied by Scorpio, there's a lot to clear when it comes to your unconscious. Moon in the 12th. Oh, that's intense. So that's a lot of like past life karma connected to the mother, to women. You know, you don't see them clearly. You can feel deceived by them. You can put them on a pedestal. So these are like the themes, let's say, with the moon in the 12th. But it's like, The moon in the 12th can also be like past life enemies. Like the 12th house placements can also be past life enemies. So when you have the moon in the 12th house, it can be past life enemies coming through as the mother, or women in your life, or feminine. So the way that I see past life enemies is like people who might throw you off your path. That's the way that I see it. It doesn't have to be always extreme. They're out to get you. Like, it doesn't have to mean this. It can just be like, again, you know, they might throw you off your path. You might get distracted by them. You know, it's kind of like this energy that like, it's almost like this tornado energy that just like almost consumes you, that you don't see because it's a 12th house. Hey, concerned. No, concerned. Always share what you want to say. I love having you in the chat. So what is new with you? What is a 411? Are you guys excited for the holidays? Are you guys working? Are you guys off? I know some companies like shut down for like the holiday season, which is nice for those people who work in those companies. What should we talk about today? Hey G, how's it going? You said your 12th house is in Capricorn and your moon is in Capricorn. So is your moon also in the 12th house? I'm curious to know. It always depends how the houses get divided, because sometimes it could be like part of your 12th house is Capricorn, or maybe the majority of it is, and then like the rest of it could be, let's say, the first house, and the moon can go into the first. Depends. You said, what are my suggestions for those with Aries moon in the second opposite Saturn and Pluto, and Saturn entering into Aries? I don't look at predictive readings, but there might be certain things to clear here connected to the home, connected to family. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love marshmallows and I love hot chocolate. So thank you for that. Yes, so yes, I don't do predictive readings, but because it is Saturn, okay, that's going to be aspecting your moon, okay? It's like there could be themes around family and karma, for example, coming up, like family karma, for example, or like you learning about discipline during this period of time, or like learning how to manage your emotions. Sometimes that could be depression too. I'm not trying to speak anything into existence for anybody, but when people have moon Saturn in their own natal charts, sometimes, again, that Saturn energy can bring upon depression to the person. Hey, Saver Libra, how's it going? Okay, I'll get there in just a second. Let's see. What did Paul say? Paul, you said Uranus is the society or the collective. What is the 12th house to the 11th house? You said, does that mean everything outside human society? You can't imagine what Pluto and Pisces will be like. And I was thinking about that because we also have, we have Gen Y, which is millennials, and Gen Z, and that's like the end of like that whole group of like, I guess you can look at it as karma or just like whatever was going on in those family lines. And then we're going to start with Gen Alpha is really what it is. So that's gonna be like a whole different world. Like they're just gonna be completely different compared to like the old way of being, and the world will be different by the time they incarnate as well. So the 11th house, yes, it can be kind of like the collective consciousness, but it's more so like advancements in society, if that makes sense. The 12th house is like the collective's unconscious. I hope that makes sense. Hey everyone. Oh, thank you, Azafor. I'm glad that you enjoyed all of the different videos. Yes, I try to switch things up over here. So if there's anything you guys want to know about, any particular topic, you guys can always feel free to let me know in the comments below, or even like after when the live is posted, you guys can let me know in the comments as well. So yes, with astrology, you can take it everywhere, right? Like I know someone who is really interested in medical astrology, for example, you know, you can take it in any direction. Some people use it for money. Some people use it for their life purpose. Like literally you can do so many things. So that's what's amazing. Okay, so Chiron is also in the 12th house. Yeah, I was picking up on that energy for you. Is it conjuncting the moon? And what sign is Chiron in? You said, hey, I'm doing well. How are you? You said you have your sun in Libra. You have your sun in Libra in the first house. Nice. And then you said it's at 15 degrees with your ascendant at 29 degrees. Jupiter is in Virgo, also in the first house. Can I talk with the 29 degree? And then you asked, is the 29 degree karmic? So I find everything in astrology to be karmic, or just in general. It just depends like what degree of karma are we talking about. So I'm curious to know, like, is your sun conjunct your Jupiter? Like, is it an out of sign conjunction? It's nice when you have the sun in the first house, because that gives you the undertone of having a Leo rising. You really want to be seen, and plus you have it in Libra, and then it's also potentially conjuncting your Jupiter. You could be interested in law with that energy, okay? People who are interested in, you know, the world of politics or being a political figure. It depends on the rest of the energies in your natal chart as well. But yes, the 29 degree is absolutely karmic, because it's like you don't get out of that energy until you master it, okay? So, you said with your ascendant at 29 degrees, so your ascendant is at 29 degrees. So it's like you don't get out of the Libra energy until you master it, okay? So you're meant to master it like people pleasing and you're meant to master, you know, let's say the shadows of that energy, right? Like, you know, interacting with people and relationships and not falling into codependency and having your own identity, like all of these things. Thank you so much, Concerned. Yes, I'm glad that you have attended the lives. I love having you in the lives. I love having all of you guys in the lives. Thank you all for being a part of this channel, for your likes, your shares, your subscribes, your questions, your emails sometimes as well. But yes, if you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progressed natal chart reading, if you guys would like a mini natal chart reading, mini synastry reading, you guys can send me an email and we will go from there. That's basically how you like quote unquote book. You send me the email and then I'll send you the rest of the information. That's it. Okay, so don't get confused if you guys select, you know, book now under like the readings and then an email window pops up. Like that's what's supposed to happen. Oh, congratulations to your daughter. She's 40. That's amazing. Happy birthday to her. Let's see. I'm just reading what you guys are saying here. Oh, good. I'm glad that it resonated. Yes, I just think about things and then I come here and I share it with you guys. That's pretty much it. That's kind of what I do. You said, hey, how's it going? You said you've been wanting to ask me tips on your Scorpio stellium. Can you take a moment to look at your chart and come back? Yeah, absolutely. Go for it and then come back into the chat. Yes. I'm curious, Chris, is your Chiron conjuncting Scorpio? Like, is it an out of, like the Chiron, is the moon, do you have a moon Chiron aspect is basically my question. Maybe it's out of sign because I was kind of feeling that energy in your chart because already you have moon in the 12th house, which is like this karma around women and the mother. And then if the Chiron is conjuncting the moon, that's even more karma connected to like women and the mother and like the wound here. So I'm curious to know if it might be like a wider conjunction. You said, what do I think of a planet that goes direct in a progress chart? I look at that actually when I'm doing your readings. I always look to see if a retrograde energy has gone direct, okay? Because then you kind of clear the heaviness of that energy. Hope that makes sense. Usually what I say to you guys too when I'm doing the progress natal chart readings is if you haven't cleared that energy yet, it's still there. Does that make sense? So even if it has progressed and you're kind of going intuitively, like living intuitively, you probably have energetically come out of that energy already. Does that make sense? But if you haven't, you now have the potential to come out of it. Okay, so I'm always looking at that as well when I look at the progressions. Usually the external planets, it depends on the degrees. They might not always progress out of the retrogrades. Hey, Fairy Goddess, how's it going? What's up, you guys? How are you all doing? What is the 411? I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks so much for the likes, you guys. Yes, you guys are awesome. You said you have Pisces ascendant at 24 degrees. You think that's an important degree for Pisces placement? I'm trying to think. 24 degrees. Check out my video for, I think I did a video on degree theory and the ascendant. Oh, you're going through it? Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm sending you good vibes and healing vibes. I've heard that a lot for people this year. I feel like for a lot of people, because it's like the end of the year, they might be feeling it even more because it's kind of like, you know, the ending of a 9-year before we go into 1, right? So for people probably who are resistant to change, they're like really feeling it because it's like, okay, like time to wrap it up is really what it is. You said you heard that moon in the 4th house is supposed to be really good. Like in synastry, you have moon and Scorpio conjunct Pluto and Scorpio in the 4th house of 2 people in your household, and you feel like it's maybe negatively affecting you, maybe because they have a lot of trauma. It could be this. I mean, Scorpio in the 4th house is never easy. I'm curious to know, do they have Scorpio placements going into your 4th house? Is that what's happening? The 4th house synastry, yes, it can be good. But just like anything, you have the light side and then you have the shadow side is really what it is. You said there are major shifts taking place to the point where you cannot tell what day it is. Is anyone else experiencing the same? Yes. I thought that was just because I'm in my crown chakra. I feel like 24/7. So I'm kind of like, wait, hold on. What day is it? And then like they keep doing like weird timeline glitches. So sometimes it's a Friday and I'm like, I thought it was Wednesday. It like throws you off. It's really interesting because they keep messing with the timelines. They keep opening and closing them. Does that make sense? So they're like trying to basically adjust the timelines is really what it is. But nothing is really working how it used to anymore. So it's really interesting to witness. You said, can I talk about how money is an energy? Rewatching my Scorpio videos? Yes. Okay, so this is how you guys can look at money. Yes, money is an energy just like anything on this earth plane, and you have to look at it as like feminine energy. And then you also like in terms of like receiving money, you want to look at it in terms of like what is your relationship with receiving, and then that means what is your relationship with the feminine energy within. Does that make sense? So usually people who, you know, struggle to honor the feminine, whether it's within themselves or within their lives, they tend to struggle financially as well. Okay, because it's literally the creative life force energy. So usually you guys can look at like money, okay? How much do you feel like your energy is worth, okay? Because on this airplane, like that's the exchange, okay? Like your time and energy equals some form of money, right? So it's like if you feel like your time and energy is worth more, then you're gonna start generating more, basically, quote unquote, abundance, okay? So that's how you guys can look at money in terms of it being an energy. And then you kind of always have to have an abundance mindset, right? Understanding that, you know, there's enough for everybody, but it's hard to rewire, right? Sometimes you're already pre-programmed with a natal chart to come in with a certain mindset. Sometimes it's the upbringing, right? So it's hard for people. And I mean, they teach you that in economics as well. They're always going to say that it's really hard for people to break free from the socioeconomic bracket that they were born into. Okay. Is really what it is. So it's really hard because it's like, you know, a lot of people say you're subconscious, and I'm not a psychologist, as you guys know, but they say a lot of your subconscious is already created by the time you're age 4. Okay. So you kind of have to explore what was going on during that period of time. You have to really go in there to see what is your relationship with money. So like the 4th house can tell you also in terms of like the family's, let's say, perception and relationship to money, because you probably internalize a lot of that as well. Now let's say you grew up in a household where maybe you wanted a toy, and let's say you heard comments like, oh, we can't buy that right now, or, you know, like things like this, that then kind of, and you probably as a child may have internalized, obviously not everybody, but some people may have internalized, you know, your ability to receive as not, quote unquote, being, you know, unconditional, right? Or it being conditional, right? Or something of the sort, or you feeling you're not worthy of that particular item, okay? So it's things like this. So it's going to be different things for different people when you're exploring the relationship with money. But yes, overall, yes, money is an energy, and it's connected to feminine energy. That's why Taurus, which pretty much rules money, which is the 2nd house, is feminine, okay? Even though this airplane and the earth signs like have been inverted, right? So the airplane is like inverted shadow masculine energy, right? But overall, it's money, like the airplane, and money is feminine energy, essentially, okay? I hope that makes sense. Exactly. You said your mom always said money doesn't, there you go. Okay. So you said your mom always said money doesn't grow on trees. Okay. So that would have been something that you internalized. Okay. And you'll see that sometimes with Capricorn energies, it like depends on the person, because I've seen people, for example, who have the beliefs like a mindset that they have to work hard for things, and then that's what ends up playing out in their reality, right? But that's their belief. And then some people who, you know, grew up in an environment where things were kind of given to them or always available, they kind of automatically have that abundance mindset. I hope that makes sense. So it's like, it's not as easy as when people say, listen to this meditation. That's like where I disagree with the new age. And it's just like a lot of new age things are like Western concepts. It's like you really actually have to dig deep to see what is your relationship with these things. And you have to look at everything from every perspective, because not everybody has the same type of upbringing, is really what it is. So you're going to have to like go into the subconscious and look at these things, because it could have been such subtle comments, right? Or it's like sometimes it's a feeling. Like, for example, let's say nobody ever made you feel like, let's say you grew up in an environment, this could actually be the shadow, let's say, of a Taurus moon, or having Taurus in the 4th house, for example, for some people. It's like, let's say you grew up in an environment where maybe people didn't necessarily talk about money, or like they didn't say these things to you, but you were made to feel certain types of ways, or maybe you overheard conversations. Or like, for example, let's say someone talked about how expensive something is all the time, okay? Or like they would be like, we can't buy this at this store, we have to go to this store. Like those things go into the subconscious, right? Especially when you're a child, because you're absorbing everything, okay, like a sponge. And then the struggle with that as well is like kids internalize everything, and then they think that everything is like their fault, okay? Usually, because that's just how it is for kids. So it's this. You said you seriously wonder if money is going to be important for much longer. It seems like we're coming to an enormous transformation very soon. Yeah, they're going to try to bring in digital currency. Like that's their plan. I mean, they're just like telling everybody about that already. So let's see if that ends up panning out. But like from the beginning of time, like that's how money, you have to understand like the history of money too, right? Like money started out as barter, right? So there was always exchanges happening, okay? It just eventually turned into money, okay? Is really what it is. So it's like, it's just really interesting because, for example, you know, when people worry about like tarot cards or like money and all of these things, it's like, it's true. It's just like either a piece of paper, some countries it might be plastic or whatever. But same thing with like tarot cards, right? Like those are also pieces of paper with like pictures on them. You know what I mean? So it's like we kind of give these things meaning, and it is what it is, you know, because it's like that's the struggle for 12 housers. Like that's why it's a struggle for them to operate down here, because they're going to be like, money's not real, or some of them have the belief system of like money's the root of all evil. Then also in these spiritual communities, they have belief systems of like you should offer things for free in terms of like spiritual practices. And it's like at the end of the day, it's a material plane. And right now we can talk about how we think the world should be or what it's going to be like, but at this point in time, money is a thing, okay? And it's something that exists and it's needed, okay, down here on this earth plane. So that's just what it is. So we kind of have to look at things from that perspective, is really, really what it is. In the future, things might change, yes, but also keep in mind that barter always existed, right? So it's like this whole system of exchange has been going on for some time, right? You said your old roomie used to go to multiple gas stations for cheaper gas. Love her and we're besties, but you know that's energy you can't constantly be around. It's a lack mindset, yes, and that's why unfortunately sometimes like when people have shadow Taurus in their chart, I think I said that in one of my videos recently, like a Taurus with money, great energy to be around, like they're so pleasant, but when they don't have money, they're so petty, okay? That's the Taurus energy in the shadow, because like even if they have money, for example, but they're still in that mindset where they don't have money, they're going to be like looking at every single thing. Okay. So the shadow of Taurus is definitely not pleasant, especially if they don't have money, or if they do have money, but they're not in that mindset. Okay. Is really what it is. So it's really interesting. Something that I was thinking about today was actually how all of the squares in terms of like the fixed energies, like why they don't get along. So for example, I was thinking about like Taurus, well, just like all of even the oppositions, but I was thinking about like Taurus and Aquarius, and I was like, basically like Taurus's like need for comfort threatens the Aquarius energy, like need for freedom, and like that's why they don't necessarily get along, right? And like Aquarius just like wants to go with the flow in their own way, and then Taurus is like very much about like having like a specific type of like stability is really what it is. Sometimes Taurus energies like they have the same friends for their whole lives, which is fine. That's just like the nature of the energy. They're just stable is really what it is. But they're like the safe investments is really, really what it is. So it's like interesting to see like also in terms of like how the energies might not get along, like in terms of like squaring aspects and so on and so forth. Hey, thank you so much, Celeste, for the kind words. I use Tropical and I use Placidus when I'm doing my readings. You said, okay, let me go back up and see what you guys were saying when I was going off on my tangent. You said you have Gemini rising and Aquarius midheaven. You hate using ChatGPT and AI will, you hate that using ChatGPT and AI will benefit you. So many ethical issues. I mean, here is like what it is. It depends, like, okay, it depends what like the end goal is, right? Because like there are benefits to these things. Like if it'll help you get a job, if it'll help you, you know, sometimes write a cover letter, or you know what you guys can do too is like you guys can put all your skills into ChatGPT. Like let's say you upload your resume and you write down all of your skills that you have, and then you can be like you can literally use it to make money. So you can be like, okay, give me a business idea that I could do based off of all of these things or all of my skills, or how can I make money based off of all of these skills that I have? You know what I mean? Like it can help you in that way. I hope that makes sense. But in terms of going to it and creating codependency with it, where you're not thinking for yourself, it's like everything's about balance at the end of the day, right? But a lot of people aren't able to do that. And like a lot of people blur like reality with fiction too, right? So they start to like blur the lines between like ChatGPT being literally something that is just collecting all the information off of the internet together. Does that make sense? Like when you ask ChatGPT a question, it's collecting all of the internet's like sources or whatever it finds, right? So it might not always be accurate. Keep that in mind too. But again, just like even in the current reality, right? People don't have discernment. So it's just like unfortunate. You said is conjunct close together. Chiron and Pluto are conjunct in the 12th house. Moon is also in the 12th house, but not close. I'd have to look at your chart to see if it's conjuncting exactly. But Chiron and Pluto, that's also struggles with power as well. Moon, Pluto. So we basically have power struggles with women. It started at the home and with the mother, with all of that. And it's like created this wound of like feeling powerless internally, essentially. Hey, Aries rising. How are you doing, Charlie? You said Aries rising, Taurus moon, and Leo rising. Venus, Neptune, Uranus in the descendant. Aquarius 7th house, and then you have a lot going on in your 9th house, which is Aries. So your lifetime is pretty much with the self, and figuring out who you are and doing your own thing. Hey, Matthias, how are you doing? I'll get to your question, Francois, in just a second. I go back and forth sometimes when more of you guys start to come into the chat. You said, yes, you're trying to learn specific skills instead of using it as an emotional crutch. Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people are using ChatGPT, again, you know, as a therapist or whatever, you know, but you don't want to be dependent on it. I think it's just like a perspective change. You said Taurus assessment is true. Your girlfriend in college was brilliant. And you being a Scorpio sun, Pisces ascendant, you felt like she wasted her gifts pursuing merchant types of careers. That's the thing. And that's like the struggle with like that opposition with Taurus and Scorpio. Like here's the thing, like they might ground each other, or like the Taurus might ground the Scorpio, but like the Taurus isn't, if someone's like, let's say purely Taurus, they don't have Scorpio in their chart, a house or Pluto aspects or anything of that sort. Like if we're just looking at Taurus as the Taurus energy and Scorpio as the Scorpio energy, these two might not get along because it's like Taurus won't understand the Scorpio approach to things, which is usually more metaphysical, behind the scenes, and occult, you know? You said, and of course, there is no doubt that we are biological beings and therefore need to eat and stay warm. Exactly. Let's see what else were you guys saying up here. Where was your question, Francois? You said you're a Libra sun with Virgo moon and Scorpio stellium in your rising, so in your first house. Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, and Venus is also in your first house. That's nice. So that makes you attractive and good looking and kind of meant to be out there interacting with people. Also gives you people skills, social skills. And then you said Pluto and Juno in Scorpio in Libra, or your Libra sun is at 10 degrees. What were you asking earlier about the Scorpio stellium? You said no conjunctions between your sun and Jupiter. Interesting. It's not an out of sign conjunction. You said you think your Jupiter is in detriment. So you've been told, I mean, technically, yes. If it is in Virgo, it's going to be in the fall. Yes. But I mean, it depends on the aspects. You said semi-sextile to Mercury and semi-squared to Venus. You said, Barbara, you've got Scorpio ascendant and Pluto in the first house with your south node 3 degrees off of the ascendant. You said you feel like you've encountered a lot of past life enemies disguised. South node, and then it's 3 degrees. Okay, so it's conjuncting your ascendant, and then your ascendant is in Scorpio and Pluto in the first house. Yes, definitely. Past life enemies, but also I feel like it's people that you're kind of meant to clear karma with in a way. Like they kind of might feel put off by you because it's Scorpio. You know what I mean? Scorpio kind of brings out that extreme reaction in people. You said regarding receiving, if someone offers something, you try to say yes as much as possible, even like things like receipts, exactly, to show the universe that you're open to receiving blessings out. Exactly. That's the biggest thing. So like, let's say you guys are asking for something, whatever it is. Let's say you guys even want to buy something or whatever it is. Like, let's say you really wanted, you know, let's say a pair of shoes, and then you go to the store and then it's like, finally they have them and there's only one pair and they're in your size. And then it's like, now all of a sudden you don't want to get it anymore because, you know, the ego kicks in. You're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't get it. Do I really need it? Which is fine. Maybe, you know, don't be an impulse shopper, but it's the metaphor here that I'm kind of trying to get across. It's like, if you don't accept it after you wanted it, right? It's like you're basically saying to the universe in one way, shape, or form, like unconsciously, like either, again, it depends. It's going to depend on, like, it's going to be depending on like the person, right? Sometimes you can be like, you feel like you're not worthy of receiving that thing. So that could be like the sabotage energy. Sometimes it could be like you're saying to the universe, you're not grateful for it because you wanted it for so long and now you don't want it anymore. You know what I mean? So that like energetically stunts the receiving energy, like the flow is really what it is. And then of course, like the more you come into your person and you kind of exude your sexual energy outwards, things just automatically get magnetized towards you. So there's that as well. You said you despise where we are going as a society and you will not use it, period. I'm guessing you're talking about ChatGPT. Yeah, it's just like people are becoming too dependent on it. Like people don't have discernment at all. You said, what is Mars and Leo in the 12th house in a nutshell? Mars and Leo is a struggle. I find that Leo energetically can be very sensitive and like they can be very sensitive to rejection. It's such like a subtle energy that like a lot of people I think don't pick up on when it comes to Leo. But it's like sometimes they will deem certain things as rejections and they'll get so hurt by it, even if they might not show it, but then the ego is going to come out, the pride's going to come out. So it's like almost like this energetic mask to like kind of hide that they feel like hurt by rejection, for example. So that's a huge thing that the Leo energy has to work through, is a rejection wound is pretty much the thing here. But yeah, Hard to say, you guys. At the end of the day, you know, I'm Pluto dominant, I'm Scorpio. Yeah, I'm Pluto dominant, I'm Saturn dominant. So it's like, if they have these tools, like, why not use the capitalism tools against them? So like, why not use these things to see how you can make more money? Like, that's the way that I see things, like ChatGPT, you know, or it can help you like kind of come to like a conclusion as well. Like, for example, let's say you have certain symptoms. Obviously, again, it's not a medical practitioner, but people don't have that sense. That's the thing. Like, people don't have common sense is really what it is. So they can have a hard time like discerning what anything is really what it is. But like, let's say you go to ChatGPT and you can type in there and you can be like, here are all of these symptoms, and you can kind of, it depends like how you ask the question is really what it is. Does that make sense? For it to kind of help you narrow certain things down. But I guess people can't go through that refining process for themselves. So if you can, it's better to just not use it, I guess. But yes, those are a few hacks, I guess, with ChatGPT that you guys could use to kind of benefit for yourselves in your lives. Could I read Aries next, please? What do you want to know about Aries? You said your 12th house is in Libra. So in synopsis, you're asking how to balance, or how you can balance out all of this enigmatic Scorpio energy. Yeah, it's a struggle. So when you have a Scorpio stellium, it's like, okay, when you have Libra and Scorpio, you're basically meant to, you know, bring the people into your energetic circle, make the friends, and then it's shadow work season for them and for you is really what it is, okay? So that's what it is. When you have a lot of Scorpio energy, you have to basically do the shadow work. That's the only way the energy gets easier. Otherwise, you kind of get trapped in those lower chakras of like shadow Scorpio, because shadow Scorpio is like jealous, possessive. They can very much go into defense, you know, they can very much, you know, get into arguments with people, you know, because it did used to be ruled by Mars at the end of the day, you know. But the divine version of Scorpio is healing, and being the healer is really what it is, the alchemist, you know, having things come towards you. And that's a struggle too, because it's like a lot of the time people have Scorpio in their chart. You know, you could have felt, you know, a large part of your life where you felt powerless, or even Pluto aspects, like I was mentioning to one of you guys earlier as well, like when Pluto aspects your personal placements, you know, these energies will always tell you where you may have felt powerless in your life. Like Pluto, and what house Pluto is in, the sign for Pluto is the generation, okay? So that's going to apply to everybody within a generation. But the house for Pluto, the house for Scorpio that you guys have it in, if you have Scorpio placements, so where are they? You know, are they in the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, okay? Or sometimes even if you have a house energy could also tell you, or again, Pluto aspecting the personal placements, okay? That will always tell you where you may have felt powerless, or like your power was taken away from you. So for example, let's say you have Pluto or Scorpio in the 9th house, you may have felt powerless in the area of like religion and spirituality. Maybe you grew up in a home that was very religious, or very, you know, like, you know, maybe a certain type of cult, you know, maybe it's not like a specific religion, but maybe they were part of some sort of cult where like your freedom of expressing your own mind gets restricted, okay? So these people feel powerless, and then later on when they grow up, they could be chasing power in that exact same area. So that's the whole thing, like, it's a relationship with power, okay? But most of the time when people are chasing power, it's because they felt powerless when they were younger. So it's a matter of like balancing that energy within is really what it is. So in your case, Francois, it kind of depends. Like, what placements do you have in Scorpio? What house is it in? You know, to give you more information as to where you may have felt powerless. And like, the thing is too, you know, sometimes when people feel powerless in an area, they can also go into the other extreme of like overcompensating in that area. So for example, let's say you have Venus in Scorpio, or let's say you have Scorpio or Pluto in the 7th house, for example, okay? In this particular case, these people like really want to hold on to their partners, okay? Because there's this fear of abandonment or losing their partners, but then it ends up inevitably happening anyways, okay? So instead of enjoying your time with this person, you ended up spending all this time trying to keep them, but then you wasted all this energy, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's a struggle. The Scorpio energy is definitely a struggle to have. Love life of Aries. Aries is very much an independent energy. So I find that Aries can either work in a power couple energy, or they kind of need a yes person with them. Okay. So that's why like you have Aries and Libra, right? Aries works well with energies where there's somebody that's going to be the person, because Aries is the initiator, right? So most of the time, you're not going to have two of the same type of person in a relationship if you think about it, okay? So Aries wants to be like the leader. So usually in relationships, if you look at Aries energy, they need to be the initiator, okay? Or the one who makes the plans. Or in the end, somehow, even if they think they don't want to make plans, things end up being how they want anyways. Like, things kind of have to go their own way, okay, is really what it is. So that's why Libra energies go with Aries, because Libra is plagued by having to make the decision, okay? So when Libra is with Aries, for example, they're like finally someone who's gonna take the burden off of them, okay, of making a decision is really what it is. But that's unfortunate sometimes for Libra because then they're not living for themselves. So do you guys see how all these energies work together? You said tips for someone with a lot of Libra. Yay, I'm glad that you love my videos. Yes, thank you guys for being a part of the channel. If you're new here, check out my playlists. I have playlists, okay? I personally really enjoy the miscellaneous playlists. So all of these videos that I do where it's like Pisces through the houses, you know, and like what I have a video where it's like, what would your future spouse be like? I had another one. I really couldn't go all in terms of the video that I really wanted to do when I wanted to do how do you express yourself sexually by, you know, the energies going through the A house. I couldn't really go all in with that energy, unfortunately, because of, you know, these platforms and you can't say everything and so on and so forth. So it still had to be somewhat relatively, I guess, PG-13. But yes, I had that video as well, like in terms of like the signs going through the A house. And what else do I have? Or maybe I'm trying to think for that video. I think I did it for the signs going through the A house. But anyways, you'll find it under my miscellaneous playlist. I have one where I talk about what will your future children be like. So that was through the 5th house, the signs through the 5th house. So yes, I have a bunch of like, you know, creative, I guess, videos you can say. So those are all in the miscellaneous playlist. Saturn, any new thoughts on Saturn in the A house? Nothing new, probably from what I said before. These people get restricted in the area of sexuality. Speaking of sexuality, they get restricted in the area of expressing their emotions, their vulnerability. They get restricted in the area of you know, fully being, you know, let's say emotional. When I say emotional, it's like they suppress. Because that's the thing with Scorpio energy and the A house. Like this energy, like they tend to suppress and then they erupt, okay? Because they're trying to like keep it all under control is really what it is. Because then sometimes they don't want to appear vulnerable. So that could be a struggle when it comes to your relationships with Saturn in the A house. Like intimacy, okay? It doesn't just have to be physical. It could also be closeness with other people. So that's the struggle with Saturn in the A house. Sometimes those people can be celibate for long periods of time too. You said Saturn is not in the chart. Is that a good thing? You will definitely have Saturn in the house. Yes, you said, hi, tips for Pisces sun, Saturn coming into the new year. You're coming out of your return, but the pressure is a lot. I don't do any predictive readings, so I don't really have anything to say other than just try to live in the moment and yeah, just try to live your best life is really what it is. And do things that you love. That's kind of going to always lead you to where it is that you're meant to go. Okay, so for one of you guys, I was asking about a lot of Libra in your chart. So it's interesting, as you asked that, I was talking to the other person with the Aries energy and then how Libra can kind of play into that. So struggle with Libra energy is, okay, because you said you have it, and you said and Leo. So you have Libra and Leo. So this energy needs to be seen, okay? So it needs to be on some sort of stage, okay? Libra and Leo, you know, you could be interested in, it depends where it is. You have the Libra in the moon and in the ascendant, and then you have the Leo sun, Mars, Venus acting, maybe, okay, with that energy taking place in there. Entrepreneurship sometimes too, but you're going to have to let go of people pleasing, okay? Libra rising is another challenging rising sign. I mean, I could go through all the rising signs and tell you all the challenges and the benefits of all of them. Libra rising is a challenge because all of the energies are in the opposite house, okay? Unless you have an interception, then that's a different story, and that's in the Placid tropical system. So it's like the first house is technically Aries, and instead of, you know, having that Aries energy in the first house where you get to be your own person, do your own thing, you are now creating your identity through everybody around you, okay? So there could be a lot here in terms of pleasing people, and that could sometimes happen very much behind the scenes or like subconsciously. So sometimes the Libra energy can even sometimes without realizing fall into living double lives, okay? Because they're trying to maybe do what they want to do, but then there's this part of them that's pleasing another person, okay, for whatever reason. So you have to explore your people pleasing tendencies. Sometimes the people pleasing can be like you subconsciously people pleasing the family, okay, or doing what the family wants for you. So you'll see that a lot of the time when people are in situations where it's like, when I say family, it's like your upbringing family, for example. You'll see that a lot of the time, again, where people kind of end up in situations where they're doing two things. So for example, maybe there's part of you that is, you know, working a certain type of job that the family wants. And then on the side, maybe you always wanted to be a music DJ or, you know, a artist or something like that, like something completely different. And then it's like, you're not doing that, but you're doing this, but you're trying to do it both. Okay, but you can't do two things at once, okay? So that's important to understand. So then in that case, you'd have to explore and be like, is there a part of you that is subconsciously trying to please someone, okay? Is really what it is. So then you have to explore and see where that comes from. In your case, it literally could be the family because it's the moon sign. Is really what it is. You said Sag rising and a night chart. You said, we don't necessarily agree with pharmaceutical drugs, antidepressants due to numbing, but what's my advice for someone who is dealing with depression? How can you fix this energy? Okay. So, in terms of depression, the only things that I can say is you have to find something that makes you excited. Okay, so you literally have to push yourself out of that energy. Okay, because it's an energy of either like stagnancy, or sometimes you get comfortable in the stagnancy, because you guys have to understand that no matter what you guys do, you will get comfortable in that thing. Okay, that's like, when they say 21 days creates a habit or whatever. So if you're in a stagnant energy and you're chilling in that, you will have comfort around that. Even when people get into toxic relationships, okay, that's why they have a hard time leaving, because it becomes this comfort for them, and then the ego is created through that thing. So thinking about leaving that particular situation might give you anxiety, but that's just the ego trying to keep you safe in that particular situation. So if you're struggling with depression, you have to find something, and it's just my own opinion, I'm not a psychologist, as you guys know, those are always my disclaimers, but you have to find something that you're going to love to do, and you're gonna have to push yourself to do that thing in the beginning. That's for anyone who is in any sort of stagnant position. You literally have to push yourself, okay, to take that first step, that initial step, to actually do something different and switch up the energy is really what it is. So you have to find something that you like to do. And movement is always going to help with depression. I find going to the gym, okay, at least like getting those feel good hormones like going through your body, okay. So whether that's going to the gym, whether that's doing yoga, whether that is doing dance, taking some kind of class, like doing something new, also where you can meet people, okay. That's the other thing, is too many people are starting to live in too much in isolation right now, right? Because now we have the phone, so it's like for people that's the entertainment, but it's also like people get validated through whatever they're looking up online, which is fine, right? I mean, that's part of the human existence, but it's like then they don't go out there to talk to actual people, okay? And it's interesting because during CV, they wanted to keep everyone 6 feet apart, right? And that's all to do with like not being close to people anymore. Like they're trying to literally separate everybody, okay? Remember when like their slogan for that whole thing was, oh, we're alone together, okay? So they like planted that into like the collective subconscious. Does that make sense? Some people are willingly alone together, but the same thing happened with that, okay? For some people, that created a habit. Remember how I said 21 days creates a habit? So for some people, they got really comfortable, okay, in maybe being in their own energy, which is fine. Being in your own energy is nice, okay? But at the end of the day, humans need connection. So you need to be around other people, and people who are like-minded and in person, okay, where you guys can bounce energetic fields off each other. You know what I mean? So it's this. I think those are the primary issues currently in society, and the struggles is really what it is, because it's so nice to be, chilling in your own energy and, in the comfort of your own home, put on whatever, watch something, whether it's a movie or whatever, scrolling or whatever it is, okay? So that's pretty much all I can say. Switch up your energy, do something that you love, find something that you love to do, and basically exercise. I feel like exercise will always help you get out of those energies. You said, do I believe it's possible for antidepressants to actually help, or is it always damaging? If you ask me, that's just my own opinion, okay? That's just my own opinion. I know some people have imbalances, okay? Some people have imbalances, so I guess these things are going to adjust certain things for them, right? So I'm not a medical practitioner, but personally, if I look at it from a metaphysical perspective, there is nothing that you can't find within the earth itself, right? So whether it's nature, whether it's being outside, being with the elements, like all these things, eating healthy, eating clean, right? Like all of this is connected to opening up your energy field, right? So when I look at pharmaceuticals, allegedly, in my opinion, okay, it's like it opens up your energy fields is really what it is. Like, what is it that you're taking in? Okay, it's something that is like also synthetic is really, really what it is. So it's hard to say, because only you're gonna know for yourself, right? Like you have to know what you feel like before it and what you feel like after it is really what it is. And you have to figure out how you can balance that for yourself. Because I know I've heard people talk about certain things. I mean, online, when I hear people say, certain things have really, really helped them. So it's hard to say, right? Because everyone's different, and some people actually have imbalances that it assists them with is really what it is. But it depends, right? It depends like what's going on with you, what's going on with your energy field, how strong are you internally and energetically, you know what I mean? So it's hard to say. You said, any thoughts of the 2030 5D shift? Is it a metaphor? Okay, here's the thing. When people are talking about going into 5D, yes, the collective is going through some form of, up level, upgrade. You can look at it that way, okay? They are going through some form of healing, I guess you can say, awakening, like that's happening, right? But sometimes when I turn on any app and I look in the comments and I see how much hate there is still in people's hearts in this collective, I'm like, Is it really, is this really what's going on? Like it's happening slowly. Let me say that much, okay? People are awakening, yes, and you know, it's happening faster maybe than it would have back in the day because of the internet, okay? But at the same time, 5D, when people talk about 5D, that's like the love vibration, right? You open up comments, you see all this hate or people hating on people or like tearing people down. So I'm just like, are we really there? You know what I mean? Like, we need to be realistic, right? I think we're going there, you know, but I don't think it's gonna happen maybe by 2030. Like, I don't think it's gonna happen by itself. I know people talk about like, you know, this flash happening or whatever, XYZ. I just think people need to come out of this like savior mentality, like someone's gonna come to save them, or like the aliens are gonna come save people. Like, it has to be the people. Like, you have to save yourself is really what it is, okay? And you have to figure out what works for you. Same thing to the individual that I was, you know, mentioning earlier, right? You know, what is going to help you in your day to day, okay? Because sometimes some of these things make people go numb too, you know what I mean? And then it's like, then you're not feeling any emotions. So it's like, you kind of have to figure out like what's going on with your own emotional world and what do certain emotions mean, and being okay with feeling emotions and then processing and then purging and exploring all of these things within the self. And then like what basically like up levels your mood, okay, is it, you know, because these days I'm even discovering like how bad sugar is and how much it's in the preservatives of the food and how much like that affects people too, okay, because it like creates inflammation in the body. And when you have inflammation in the body, and again, allegedly, I have to say that, right, from my own observations, but that's my most recent discovery. It's like sugar literally creates inflammation within the body, and then that also brings in anxiety and it opens you up energetically as well, okay, because it's like, it's literally like this like energy that's like going through your body. It's almost like foreign, okay. So anyways, you say you think we're all in our own timeline. I think about that sometimes. Sometimes I see like when people resonate with certain pockets and certain individuals, I think they're everyone's at a different consciousness. Confirmation. My phone started ringing. But yeah, everyone's at a different consciousness. So when I see certain pockets of people resonate with certain beliefs or like trains of thought, it's like they're on that consciousness timeline. Does that make sense? It's not everyone's going to resonate with each other. You said, what if a lot of bots are just programmed angry? They are. You said, you know that we're on the winter solstice, but you had never heard it called the 3 days of winter solstice, as you mentioned. What does that mean? So it's like 3 days of darkness. I just recently discovered this. You guys can look it up online if this is true or not. But basically they say that after you have the winter solstice, there's actually 3 days where like the sun doesn't move. Okay, so technically like the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere is going to be the shortest day of the year. Then you have the quote unquote 3 days of darkness. And that's, I think, why, like, it's my theory, I think this is why they put Christmas around this time of the year, because it's so dark outside. So kind of people have something to look forward to. And so there's like the lights and so on and so forth because it's so dark outside, right? So then you have the quote unquote 3 days of darkness where the sun apparently doesn't move, and then it starts to go up into like the longer days is really what it is. But you guys can look that up online, okay, to double check for yourself. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? Any thoughts on Chiron and Libra in the 7th house? So that's like a wound around relationships, okay, is really, really what it is. So that's the struggle with Chiron and Libra in the 7th house, because these people can have FOMO, fear of missing out. These people can have, you know, like feeling like, you know, you're always looking for the one, you know, or like codependency struggles, like these types of things, okay? Always like running after someone, you know, kind of like the puppy dog running after people. So it could be this. You said, does manifestation supersede our charts? At this point in time, no. I hate to tell you guys this, okay? And this is why I don't agree with the New Age. It does not, because most people are unconsciously playing out their natal charts. You actually have to transcend your natal chart to access manifestation, is really what it is. Like the manifestation that they try to teach you, okay? Because they're trying to teach you, you think it and it happens. And it's like, okay, so then why are certain people living in war-torn countries? Like that automatically contradicts that whole statement. So manifestation seems to only be true for people who were born literally into wealthy families in Western countries. Like that's what it seems like to me. You know what I mean? So if you haven't had that thing, that means you have to override all of your programming and the belief systems and all of these things, similar to what I was mentioning earlier, for you to elevate outside of certain areas, right? That's why a lot of the time generational patterns repeat, because most of your subconscious, okay, is built in those early years of life, okay? That's the struggle. So that being said, astrology can be used to see what are your soft spots, what are your wounds, what are your weaknesses, so you don't interact with that energy. Does that make sense? For example, for the person who has Chiron and Libra, okay, as an example, I'm just randomly using that energy. Now you know that you have a wound around relationships, okay? So now you have to think in your mind, how can you counteract this energy, okay? So you don't fall into the victim. You're like, oh, I have a wound around relationships, so this is why I act this way, you know? I mean, you're not going to do anything about it, okay? Like falling into victim energy, which a lot of people end up doing, right? Especially when they find out about astrology. That's why I don't do transit readings, because I like to believe there's a certain level of free will versus what's already quote unquote decided, because who decided this, okay? And I'm not going to get onto my tangent, okay? Because I have to leave soon, in terms of how I think Saturn rules this earth plane. Okay, so if Saturn is ruling this earth plane, Saturn is kind of creating this whole energetic structure. Like I always see it like a clock. Have you guys ever seen those movies where like the clock hands are like shifting and moving and like everything clicks into place? Like to me, that's how I see astrology psychically. It's like something is deciding this for you, and it's like, who is deciding this for you then? So in the natal chart, you can kind of see where the soul is trying to go. That's still there, but you'll also see all of the soft spots or the wounds or the things that are going to hold you back from where it is that you're trying to go. So for example, let's say you incarnate with an energy that struggles with discipline. What are you going to do? You're going to be like, now, oh, nothing is going to ever align because you have no discipline. No, it would make more sense for you to focus on mastering discipline. Does that make sense? So you can use astrology, okay, to basically learn it and transcend it. You said, what do I mean by transcend your natal chart? So for example, you know, let's say you have Venus in Scorpio, okay, which is interesting. One of you guys are asking about descendant in Scorpio in the 7th house, so that's going to pertain to you, okay? So descendant in Scorpio 7th house, Pluto in the 7th house. So for example, let's say someone who has these energies, you know, they're going to always be into either dark people, or those people are going to be into them, or, you know, for those people, it could mean that someone has to be like so intense for it mean to, for it to you to mean, I hope that makes sense, for it to mean to you, okay, that this person is into you and all of these things. But it's like one day you can just be like, actually, I don't agree with this anymore. Does that make sense? You can just be like, I don't claim this energy anymore. You have to detach from it. So these people might still come towards you, but you have to not engage with them. Otherwise, you're playing out the energies in the natal chart. Does that make sense? So I find it interesting when certain religions, okay, and that's going to have to be a conversation for a different day, when they're like, oh, astrology is demonic, okay, or they say things like, yeah, astrology is demonic, or like they try to say that, you know, all of these signs like Scorpio and, you know, Aquarius, like that they're demons that are attaching to your energy field. But I kind of see where they're coming from, okay? And I'm not trying to throw you guys too much into the crown chakra, but like maybe it's the way they expressed it kind of seems intense when they say demons. But the question is like, why are these energies attached to you to begin with when you're younger? You know what I mean? So it's almost like people incarnate, like the way that I'm starting to see a lot of these things these days is almost like, yes, these are some forms of entities that are hooked into your energy field, but is this something that, you know, you want? Because it's like, if you have free will, which you should have, why is this energy attached to you? So you have to like learn to like basically detach from it. Does that make sense? You said you feel that in your Saturn and Aquarius. I'm glad that that resonates. Okay, guys, if you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progressed natal chart reading, mini synastry reading, mini natal chart reading, you guys can send me an email, okay? I can go over your natal charts and let you guys know what I find in there. Speaking of, I'll always let you guys know what I pick up on is holding you back and where it is that you're trying to go, okay? That's the way that I approach everything. That's the way that I see everything, okay? Is really what it is. We want to transcend all of these energies is really, really what it is, okay? And again, who put this energy on you? And even when people talk about karma, because the other thing too, when people talk about the new age, you know, it's like they talk about your memory being wiped, okay? So it's like, if you're actually in a school, how the new age tries to say, then why is your memory being wiped? Like, you know what I mean? There's just so many holes, okay? There are so many holes. You said, how do I feel? How am I feeling with Saturn direct leaving Pisces and heading into Aries? Honestly, I have not thought about it. You said Saturn 5th house, Capricorn, you will never get married. Already 31. You said, will you never get married? Doesn't mean you won't get married. It's usually, again, see, this is what I mean. Saturn in the 5th house, it's like when Saturn matures, which is after the age of 35, you will have a better chance of getting married or like having a family or like having kids, okay, if you have Saturn in the 5th house. But it's like the 5th house energy doesn't mean you won't get married, okay? That would maybe be like Saturn in the 7th house, for example, would be after the age of 35. But yes, you could struggle with dating when you have Saturn in the 5th house, or there's some things you have to do first so you don't get distracted by that, okay? Or you'll enjoy it more after the age of 35. Okay, guys, I'm going to sign off now. Thank you so much for being here, for being a part of this live, for being a part of this channel, for your likes, your shares, your subscribes. I hope you all have a beautiful day or evening wherever you are. Bye.